my name is Saziso Phiri and I am a freelance cultural producer and curator. I'm also the founder of the Gallery, and for this episode of Insights and Ideas for Real Creative Futures, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about my journey. Cultural producing work, I do it on a freelance basis and self-employed. I mainly work with organisations on short-term projects, some long-term projects as well, festivals, fellowships for artists, exhibitions, conferences, film screenings, visual arts mainly, but within multidisciplinary art. I mentioned that I work as a curator, setting up exhibitions, so I'll normally work with an artist and helping them develop the exhibition, making decisions on locations, how the work is displayed, on the themes addressed in the work, and lots more. There's a gallery in Nottingham called Angel Row Gallery, and they did a scheme for young people to try and get them into contemporary art, and this took place over, I think, about a few weeks over the summer. The only other thing I had going off that summer was my part-time job at Sainsbury's. I'm sleeping. We went over to the Icon in Birmingham where we had a behind-the-scenes tour, saw the exhibition and got to ask questions about what it's like being in the arts. So I went on to study photography, film studies and history of art. Being able to do film studies allowed me to see how, screenwriters and producers and directors could really enhance storytelling and use cinema as an art form. I think it allowed me to appreciate cinema as an art form. History of art, it allowed me to kind of look back, at the different types of art, the different movements. And photography allowed me to practice as an artist. I was really fortunate to be able to get commissioned to do a few jobs, but then it came to the time of applying for university. When thinking about what I wanted to do, I kind of went back to the second thing that I liked, which was politics. And then I went on to study politics and international studies. Whenever I would go to the careers library, I would always go to the creative section. So in the back of my mind, there was always this creative flair or this encouragement or this motivation to get involved with a creative job. Finished university and got into a corporate job, and it was a temporary job. I was meant to be there for 2 weeks, ended up being there for 4 years. And then it came to a point where I decided that actually I'm gonna pursue a career in the arts. One of the things that I really struggled with when trying to kind of get a foot in the door in the arts was finding opportunities. It wasn't that there wasn't opportunities, but I just wasn't eligible for a lot of them. There was all different types of criteria that I didn't meet. I saw a kind of like an event, and it was for Real Creative Futures launch. And so I found myself registering for the event and attending the event. As time went on, I started to attend some of the meetings and workshops. I regularly kept in touch with my business mentor who helped me along the way. One of the things that my Real Creative Futures business coach told me was about actually getting into the scene and getting familiar with it. My Real Creative Futures business mentor recommended that I do volunteer work. And so I applied to do some volunteer work at 2 galleries in Nottingham, one of them Backlit Gallery and another one New Art Exchange, where the Real Creative Futures programme was taking place. I would definitely say that the volunteer work was invaluable for me. I got to do a little bit of everything. At one of the galleries where I volunteered, I was an invigilator, so my job was to open and close the galleries, to greet people, to look after the exhibitions. It was a really great thing for me. And as I was volunteering, I was also learning. So I would normally take a notepad and pen with me and make notes. Whenever I was volunteering at artist talks, I would make notes about the artists, about their processes, just to get an idea about how an artist operates, a better understanding as well, but also a better understanding of why a particular organisation has chosen a specific artist to work with them. If you don't know the industry that you want to get into, then you have to kind of make a way or find a way of getting to know it. And I would say volunteer work is definitely a really good option. At the time I was still working part-time, So I would finish work at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I would go and volunteer and invigilate in the gallery space, or I would start learning, drawing up something and getting my ideas together. So I remember we came to the end of the first phase of Real Creative Futures, and we had like the closing event. And I remember saying to myself, right, so I've got involved with all of these workshops, you know, the mentorship, but I haven't yet started my business. Now, just to let you know that with Real Creative Futures, there is no pressure to kind of start your business. Now, I thought I didn't have something, but I did. But the problem was I just wasn't confident in starting off. So I remember telling the business coach or the project manager for Real Creative Futures that I was going to start something. And that's where that something was the Anti Gallery. I didn't have any money. So one thing that Real Creative Futures was really helpful in kind of showing us was that you don't need lots and lots of money to start a business or a creative business. It's very much about passion and just having the right resources. And so one of the things that I learned, I was able to gain from being in Real Creative Futures, and I think this is one of the biggest things really I got from Creative Futures was a network. I got to meet other creatives. Some of these creatives were website developers, some of them were photographers, were graphic designers, some of them were visual artists, some of them were theatre performers, dancers. There were just so many different people that represented the creative industry. And it was funny because when we would kind of, exchange details, it was almost like, well, you never know, we might work, together in the future, ha ha ha, and kind of like a little joke. But I kept people's, details in a shoebox, and I think I still have that shoebox just with like loads and loads of different business cards. But the interesting thing is that a lot of the people who I attended the Real Creative Futures program with have ended up becoming my clients, or I've become a client of theirs. And it's really interesting, or some of them would have either had kind of referred me to someone, recommended me, and I've been able to do the same. So this whole thing about networking and having a network is so valuable. I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos and lectures, and I remember there was a marketeer. He was doing a lecture at a school, and at the end of the lecture, he told the students, he said, look to your left, and then he told them to look to their right. And he said, remember these people, because these are the people that are going to help you get paid. Your network is your net worth. And so that's something that I didn't take for granted, and it's something that I recommend that you get into the habit of and don't take for granted as well. Because another thing that I learned from someone at Real Creative Futures, one of the mentors, was that, a lot of people kind of say this quote, which is, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. But she took it a step further and said, actually, it's about who knows you. Because the truth is that yes, you may know such and such and such and such, but it's even more powerful and even more impactful when someone knows you and knows what you're about, and they can kind of refer you to people and refer you for opportunities. I've had emails from people that I've never met who have heard of me through word of mouth or the projects that I've done through someone else asking me to collaborate, to commission me. So there is definitely a lot of power in that. So don't take networking for granted. I can't stress how important networking is. And so I mentioned that I didn't have any money when I was starting the Anti Gallery. But I was able to get a space for free where I could do this launch party. And from there, I had a friend who I'd met through Real Creative Futures who had offered to help me build up and plan this launch event for the Anti Gallery, help curate the exhibition with me, and she really gave her time. And I remember the launch was in February. We decided that it was going to happen in, I think we decided on a date in November. I think it was November when we kind of penciled everything for February. So we had a few months to kind of get everything off the ground. There was someone who was volunteered happily to DJ on the night. I had a photographer friend who had offered to do the photography. There was a videographer, filmmaker who I had worked with on other projects, and they had agreed to make a promo film and do a highlights video for this event. I also had friends who were willing to kind of do other activities. There was a screen printing organisation workshop that at the time were doing a fundraiser, and so we got them to promote their fundraiser, and in turn they also did some screen printing. So there's a lot of things that I had to learn earlier on, I think, with the anti-gallery. So of course it's art, it's something I'm passionate about, but it's also my job, it's a business, right? And a business isn't a business if you're not making money. So one of the things that I started to do, I started to make money. I was being commissioned for stuff. This was amazing. I was making money from something that I was passionate about. There was no more boring desk job in the corporate world. However, I was selling myself short. It might have been my third commission for the anti-gallery. I remember kind of allowing myself to be sold short. There was a budget, but I felt like the person had taken advantage. And in the end, I ended up overworking, and what they paid me was nothing compared to the work that I'd put in. Yet the work that I did was one of the most successful events, or one of the most successful projects for that particular organisation, for that particular the wider project for that organisation. So I had to learn quick from that, unlearning as well, learning how to value myself and how to price properly, but unlearning this whole thing about art just being an interest, how people don't make money from art, or this whole thing about being a starving artist. There are people who are willing to pay artists and creatives. The creative economy is a billion, it's worth billions of pounds. The arts bring in billions to our economy, and people benefit it all across the board. So don't be afraid to price, to quote, don't be afraid to learn how to talk about money, how to budget, how to really see things from a business sense. And I'm really thankful for Real Creative Futures, because it wasn't just about, with creatives, we just want to create, we just want to do all the fun stuff, but they also taught us about all of the, the money side of things as well, and that was really helpful. Another lesson that I had to learn was, I think, contracting. I think it's so important. Doesn't matter who you're working with, doesn't matter if they're your friends or someone that you work with regularly. I can't stress enough about contracting. But when there's no contract, things can kind of get all over the place and problems start, especially when you're working with friends and people that you know. I would say as well that working with friends had its challenges as well. I think friendships are really important. I value friendships definitely more than friends coming aboard on the work. I think that, it's important to know where you stand when you are working with your friends, especially when it's contractual and there's money involved, and just making sure that that work won't get in the way of friendship, especially when you're managing someone who is your friend. There've been times when I've been given opportunities, and I've been in positions where I've just been like, why am I here? I'm not supposed to be here. I can't do the job. Well, one particular situation where I really experienced imposter syndrome was when I was in Lagos, Nigeria, and I was on a curatorial program. And I remember it was the first day, and on the first session we all had to stand in front of everyone and kind of present ourselves. Like, it was nothing like too difficult or anything like that. We weren't expected to kind of do like a full-on presentation. It was just about talking about ourselves, about our project, and what we wanted to get out of it. And I can't remember where I was on the list, but I just remember wanting to swap with someone so I could go last, because I was so nervous. And I remember getting up to speak. Within seconds, I felt the blood rush from my body, and I literally just panicked and I ran off into the toilets crying. This wasn't me when I was at school, this was me a year ago in front of people that I just met for the first time. It was something that I had to overcome, but I just remember being given the opportunity to present again later that day. And I did it, I presented it, and it still felt like the hardest thing to do in the world for me to stand up. That whole experience just kind of helped me to realise that, look, we're always going to face certain situations where we may feel like a fraud in these environments, but if you've been chosen to do something, if you've been commissioned to do something, it's because the people, the commissioner, the client see something in you. You know, it's because you've created something like amazing before. So imposter syndrome is something that I think is going to come and go.
So something that I've started to do when the imposter syndrome kicks in and I feel like I can't do it or I feel like a fraud is to open up my music streaming service of choice and just play MC Hammer's Too Legit to Quit on repeat.
I'm going to stop waffling now, but I really do hope that what I've spoken about has been helpful for you and inspiring, and you're able to take something from this. I really do appreciate you getting to the end of this video, and as I mentioned at the beginning, this is not about me telling you what to do or saying things should work this way or that way. It's just about giving a different insight and a different perspective.